16B. 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that'll do.
Good morning and welcome to the Cache Scenic Railroad. This train is the all. Hey, I'm the guy standing on the front of the train. More importantly, I'm also your commentator today. Again, my name is Josh. Feel free to ask me any questions you might have. As we start out, we're going to be traveling down the old Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad. Then, once we reach the water tank just ahead, we'll turn on to the old West Virginia pulp and paper logging branch line. And we'll travel 11 miles up that logging railroad to Bald Knob, 11 miles back down the mountain to Cass, giving us a 22-mile round trip, and we will return at about 5 o'clock this afternoon. Also, as we start out, I'd like to go over a few safety rules with you, so please listen up. First of all, there is no sitting on the handrails on the side of the cars. A sudden jerk of the train could easily knock someone over the side. Also, please do not sit or lean on the chains on the end of each car, and there's no moving between cars when the train is in motion. Now, feel free to stand inside of your own car and move from one side to the next, but do not cross between two cars when the train's moving. Now, if you have an emergency and you need to use the restroom today, we do have a restroom on the train. It's directly in the center of the train on car G. So if you need to take advantage of that today, like I said, in case of an emergency, get a hold of a train crew member and we will help assist you across the cars when the train's moving. Also, parents, if you have small children, please do not hold them over the side of the train. At least if you want to keep them. We're going to blow the whistle in just a second. That you see to the right of the train is what's left of the old sawmill that was once in operation here at Cass. This sawmill was once a grand operation, operating from 1900 to 1960, and at one time it produced more hardwood lumber than any other sawmill on the entire East Coast. It has suffered 2 fires since closing 58 years ago, leaving it in the derelict state that it's in today. We're now entering the locomotive repair shop area, where all of the maintenance and repair work is done on our passenger cars and locomotives here at Cass. In the shop, we have all the tools that our skilled mechanics need to keep these antique engines running. On the left-hand side of the train, you'll see shay number 11, shay number 5. Shay 11 is our second biggest shay here at Cass. It weighs 103 tons empty, and it's a 3-truck shay, meaning it has 3 sets of wheels underneath it. Shay 11 was built in 1923 by Lima Locomotive Works out of Lima, Ohio. That's where all shays are built. Shay 11 originally worked in California for the Feather River Lumber Company as their number 3. But when it came to Cass, it was renumbered to number 11. Again, this is our second biggest shay here at Cass, weighing 103 tons, built in 1923. Now, Shay 5, on the other hand, is the oldest operating shay locomotive in the entire world. Shay 5 came to Cass as a brand new engine way back in 1905 for the Spruce Lumber Company. The Spruce Lumber Company later became West Virginia Pulp and Paper Company, and then finally Mauer Lumber Company before the sawmill closed. Shay 5 has been working continuously on the mountain for 113 years. It weighs in at 80 tons and is also a 3-truck shay. And it's the only shay that's still operating on the exact same rails that it was built for over 100 years ago. Shay 5 is our state locomotive and the pride of Cass, West Virginia. All-wheel drive. That's what makes these engines so powerful for their size and gives them so much traction.
All not train 332 departing National Limits, going
brought your cameras with you today. Alright, guys, if you want to get a really good video of the locomotive blowing the whistle, get on the left-hand side of the train or the creek side and look back towards the locomotive. We're going to be blowing the whistle all the way across Back Mountain Road just ahead. So if you're on the right-hand side of the train, don't be shy. You can move to the left. You have plenty of time to do that. And as soon as the locomotive gets up to this second bridge just ahead, go ahead and press record, and we'll blow the whistle all the way across Back Mountain Road. Again, once the locomotive gets to this second bridge, press record. There will be 2 long series of whistle blows here. Leatherbark Run starts just a short distance below Bald Knob of keeping costs low. Once we pass through the switchback, we'll be traveling up over the tracks that you see here, and the locomotive will then be pulling our train instead of pushing it. The switchbacks and casts are the last 2 standard gauge operating switchbacks in America. There used to be switchbacks all over the place because most logging railroads utilize these. However, most logging railroads have been long forgotten and lost to time. This is one of the last few places where you can go and actually travel on the exact same railroad track that the logging train traveled on over 100 years ago. The switchbacks have been in operation here at Cass since 1901. know what that whistle means? That whistle means we're meeting another train. The locomotive is about to pass through what is called the Limestone Cut. The Limestone Cut was dug out in the fall of 1901 by a group of Italian immigrant workers using only primitive hand tools like pickaxes and shovels to dig through this solid rock hillside. If you look directly up on the hill from the Limestone Cut, right above the locomotive, you'll see a great big tree sitting up there. Take a look at this tree because you'll never see another one like it. Right above the first car, half the tree is a locust tree, or a black locust, and the other half is a sugar maple, but it's growing out of the exact same stump. It's half sugar maple, half black locust. It's a black sugar locomaple. Now it's right above the second to last car. And it's above the very last car now. Remember I said we were meeting another train? We're going to be doing that right ahead at the upper switchback, where we'll be passing the 11 o'clock Whitaker train. Switchbacks not only allow the train to climb the mountain quickly, but it's also a convenient place for two trains to pass. Our train will go through the switchback, and then we'll continue on around a short curve for a short distance, and we'll leave enough clearance room for the Whitaker train to negotiate through the switch, and then down the tracks we're on now. In fact, if you look right above our train on the uphill side, you'll see the Whitaker train sitting on the mountain here, waiting for us at the upper switchback. Again, if you look right above our train on the uphill side, you can see the Whitaker train waiting for us here at the upper switchback. The Whitaker train is being pulled today by Shay number 4. Shay number 4 is Cass's version of the little engine that could, because it's the smallest locomotive in our fleet, weighing in at 70 tons. Although she's little, she is very powerful. Shay 4 was built in 1922 by Lima Locomotive Works. And originally, Shay 4 worked in Tioga, West Virginia for the Birch Valley Lumber Company as their number 5. But when it came to Cass, it was renumbered to number 4. Shay 4 took the very last load of logs down off the mountain for Maurer Lumber Company in 1960. And Shay 4 also took the first passenger train up the mountain for Cass Scenic Railroad in 1963. Again, Shay 4 is the little engine that could. It weighs 70 tons and is the smallest locomotive in the entire fleet.
Charlie has so much fun jumping on as it goes. Ready to go back? That's part of the fun, getting out while it's going.
Okay, now that I'm back on board, our fireman today, his name is Kenny. Kenny's the guy shoveling all the coal in the locomotive.
That's a sliding expansion.
Kenny's going to climb out of shade 2 here, and then once our train passes completely through the switch, Kenny will throw that switch behind our train, and that will allow the Whitaker train to come back up the mountain for their second trip this afternoon. Anytime we leave a switch, we always leave it in the right position for the next movement of any train. Once Kenny gets the switch thrown, he's going to run and catch back up with us, and as soon as he climbs up in the engine, he'll have to grab his shovel and get back to work. And if you look up ahead of our train, you'll see why Kenny needs to work so hard. This next section of tracks is a 9.5% grade. Once we go through the S curve right ahead, we'll be going up even steeper to a 10.5% grade all the way up to Whitaker. And Kenny will have to work especially hard in this section of tracks in order to keep the steam pressure up. On a day like today, Kenny will have to shovel around 4.5 to 5 tons of coal all by himself to make this trip to Bald Knob and back. 5 tons of coal, 1 shovelful at a time. Going around this right-hand curve, we'll immediately go into a left-hand curve. That's called an S curve. Now, once we start around the left-hand portion of the S curve, I want you to get on the downhill side of the train and look back towards the locomotive, especially if you have a camera or a cell phone capable of taking video. This is an excellent place to get a video of the shade, working very hard to shove our train up this extremely steep 10.5% grade right here. So get on the downhill side of the train, look back towards the locomotive, and get ready to press record. Press record now.
Want to hand it off? I can do it over here.
towards the fire tower, you'll see two big red machines sitting over there. Take a look at these machines because you won't see these anywhere else. The biggest machine, the one on the right, that's called a steam skidder, or an aerial skidder. It's one of only two skidders left in existence in the world. The other one is in Washington State. This is believed to be the biggest skidder ever built by the Ledgerwood Company. Then over on the left, sitting on the flat cars, is a diesel log loader, which was originally steam operated. Most of these machines worked back during the logging days to harvest timber and to load the train with logs. But the reason why I'm pointing these machines out now is because here in a little bit, when we get further up the mountain today, I'm going to be explaining to you how those machines worked back during the logging days to harvest timber. And I wanted you to have a better idea of what I was talking about. If you look across the field here to your right, you'll see a mountain with three peaks. The peak furthest to the right is Bald Knob. That's where we're going.
How come it's not all of it? Why it's
Because that's up, you have to stop. Pass it down.
Some of you may have noticed by now that in some places there are 3 rails instead of just 2 rails. In fact, our very next right-hand curve has 3 rails instead of 2. The third rail is called a guardrail, and what the guardrail does is it keeps the train from derailing in a sharp curve. Because there's such a tremendous amount of force being exerted against the outside rail in a curve, especially with longer trains, the outside rail has a tendency to move over time. But if the outside rail was to move very much, it could cause the inside wheels to drop off the tracks and derail the train. When they built this railroad, they quickly found that out and they installed the guardrails accordingly. And you'll see several places like this going up the mountain today. Also, as we travel around this right-hand curve, you might hear a loud squealing noise or humming. That's when the wheels are up against the guardrail and the guardrail's doing its job, which is, like I said, keeping the train on the tracks. That's a good thing.
Light load, 1% of a big load. Right.
caused the red spruce trees